You know how sometimes a story pops up that feels like it should be simple, but the more you look, the more complicated it gets.
Definitely happens.
That's exactly what happened with this news about prayer bans in UK schools. It might sound pretty black and white.
But it's really not.
Trust me, there were some surprising layers here, and it's definitely got people talking.
Absolutely. What started as a decision at, just one school has really opened up a much wider discussion.
About religious freedom, yeah. And how it kind of intersects with secularism in schools.
Precisely. In our education system.
And the thing that really kicked this off was back in early 2024, wasn't it? Michaela Community School in London.
That's the one.
They decided to ban communal prayers during break times.
Yeah, and the head teacher, Catherine Burbelsing, her reasoning was about maintaining school cohesion.
Right, school cohesion and preventing division, basically.
That focus on cohesion is really a critical point here. The school framed it less as being against prayer and more about the potential for communal prayer in that specific setting to maybe lead to segregation or tension.
Right. Okay. So for you listening, this isn't just some passing news story. We're going to really dig into the details here.
Go beyond the headlines.
Exactly. Yeah. Understand the specifics, the legal stuff behind it, and why this one school's decision has, ignited such a big debate.
And hopefully by the end, you'll have a really clear picture of the core issues.
That's the plan. Now, just to give a sense of what we've looked at.
Yeah, we've gone through news reports on the ban, the legal challenges that followed.
Looked at the actual laws involved, too.
Definitely. And even some data on religious demographics in the UK, just to add context.
So our mission, if you like, for you today is to try and cut through some of the noise around this.
Separate fact from, let's say, some of the more heated takes.
Yeah, look at the different perspectives and, crucially, understand the broader implications. For religious freedom, secularism in the UK today.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the first thing that's really vital to get straight, building on what you said, is that the Michaela School decision, it's not some new national rule.
Right. Important distinction. It's one school.
One school's choice. Now, its outcome might influence other schools, maybe set a precedent.
Sure, it could.
But it wasn't a government policy change or anything like that.
Okay. And to really get why this has become such a flashpoint, we need to look at the existing legal situation.
Yeah, the framework.
There's the Education Act 1996, and that actually requires state schools to provide something called broadly Christian collective worship.
That's right. It mandates a form of collective worship, broadly Christian in character.
Which sounds quite specific.
It does, but there's also a really important bit. Parents have the right to opt their children out.
Okay. So they can excuse their kids from it if they want.
Exactly. So you've got this legal requirement, but also parental choice built in.
Which I imagine leads to a bit of a mixed picture in practice.
Very much so. While the law has that Christian element, the day-to-day reality in loads of schools isn't necessarily strict Christian services every day.
Right.
But on the flip side, it's also generally true that schools don't automatically have dedicated prayer spaces for, say, Muslim students.
Unless the school specifically decides to provide one.
Precisely. So the legal baseline has this Christian tilt, but the actual practice is much more varied, less strictly enforced, maybe.
Interesting. So there's a bit of a gap between the letter of the law and the secular reality in many schools.
There is. And many schools navigate this diversity by being flexible, maybe making accommodations where they feel it's needed, but there isn't some consistent national policy for all faiths beyond that Christian worship bit.
Which brings us right back to Michaela School.
Yeah.
Their reason for the ban, as we said.
Yeah.
Keeping the environment united, preventing divisions.
And it wasn't just a policy they brought in quietly, it faced a legal challenge.
Right, a student challenged it.
A Muslim student arguing it infringed on their religious freedom.
And this is where it gets really crucial. The High Court actually ruled in favor of the school. They upheld the ban.
They did, back in April 2024.
They basically said the ban did not violate religious freedom.
Yeah.
So, for you listening, the key takeaway here is the court decided the school's aim for unity,
for cohesion,
weighed more heavily in this specific case than the students' right to communal prayer during breaks.
That ruling is significant. It sets a legal marker, essentially accepting the school's argument that allowing communal prayer at that time could undermine its inclusive ethos.
Could potentially lead to segregation, was the argument.
That was the school's concern, yes, based on religious lines.
Okay. Now, amidst all this, you might have seen some other claims floating around. especially online.
Mm-hmm. Things can get distorted.
One thing that keeps cropping up is this idea that these prayer bans are somehow linked to a, quote, Muslim takeover of British institutions.
Yeah, that narrative is out there, and it's really important we tackle that directly with facts. Because that assertion that this is some coordinated effort by Muslim leaders, it just doesn't match how school policies are actually made.
Right, so let's be crystal clear.
Mm-hmm.
Local mayors, even in areas with large Muslim populations, they do not have the power to set school policies.
No, they don't control things like prayer rules in schools.
Those decisions are made much closer to the ground, aren't they?
Exactly. It's the head teachers and the school governors. They're the ones responsible for the school's management, its policies.
And let's use a concrete example.
Yeah.
Sadiq Khan, mayor of London, he's Muslim.
Yes.
He has absolutely never pushed for prayer bans.
Yeah.
In fact, quite the opposite.
He's actually spoken out against policies he felt singled out Muslims.
So that narrative about mayors driving this, it just doesn't hold water when you look at the facts.
Not at all. And it's maybe worth just quickly mentioning, this isn't only a UK thing, is it?
These debates about religion in schools.
Yeah, secularism, religious expression.
Mm.
We see similar discussions, sometimes very heated ones in other Western countries.
Like France, with their rules on religious symbols.
Exactly. Or different approaches in the U.S. about student prayer. It shows these are complex issues lots of places are grappling with.
Okay, so let's get to the real heart of the controversy here. Why is this specific issue sparking such strong feelings?
Well, you can see the tension, can't you? On one hand, the school wants neutrality, unity, but on the other, there's this perception, particularly for some Muslims, of a potential double standard.
Explain that a bit more, the double standard idea.
It comes from the fact that while communal Muslim prayer during breaks might be banned in a place like Michaela,
Right.
in many state schools, that legally required broadly Christian worship, even if it's just, say, an assembly with hymns or something with a Christian theme, often still happens.
Ah, I see. So one form of religious observance is restricted, while another, albeit different form, continues due to the law.
That's the perception that fuels some of the criticism.
Okay. So let's look at the arguments. Those who support the bans, what's their main point?
Their core argument is generally that schools should be neutral spaces, religiously speaking.
To avoid peer pressure.
Yeah, prevent peer pressure related to religion, avoid any kind of sectarianism, make sure everyone feels comfortable regardless of background.
Sort of a level playing field idea.
Exactly. Prioritizing an environment where no single religion is seen to be given special treatment during the school day.
Okay, but then there's the other side. The critics of the bans.
And their viewpoint is really important too. They often argue these bans unfairly hit Muslim students.
Because for many young Muslims, prayer is.
It's a fundamental part of their daily practice. They argue taking a few minutes during a break isn't about making a big show, it's just fulfilling a religious duty.
And unlikely to be disruptive, they'd say?
That's the argument. And they worry that banning it sends a message that their religious identity isn't welcome or respected.
And there was that detail from a BBC interview, wasn't there? A student affected by the ban?
Yes, that was quite powerful.
We don't have the audio, but the student basically said, it feels like they don't respect us.
Yeah,